Hello students, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Welcome to today's 1 to 2 year experience violin class. Today we're going to be going through the song Auld Lang Syne, which is a really famous folk tune. Most likely once you hear it, you'll definitely recognize it. I'll start the class by playing the song, and then we're going to go through some tips and give you guys something to work on this week. All right, raise your hand if you guys recognize the piece. All right, quite a few of you, great. All right, so this is a really good piece if you're just starting to learn dotted quarter notes, and really good if you're looking to achieve some good counting habits. So I think I'll start off by just kind of talking about the rhythm a little bit. So what I find with a lot of students is that they don't really have a good method for counting this dotted quarter note. So a lot of times they just hold it for as long as they think it should be held for and don't actually have a method to count it. So what you should be doing is counting in some way to where you're as accurate as possible counting the dotted quarter note. So what I actually do is I count in eighth notes. I subdivide. So a quarter note would be 2. A dotted quarter note would be 3 counts. An eighth note would be 1. So every measure, instead of being 4 in each measure, would be 8. So 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. Sorry, the first 2 was a pickup note. So this equals 8. Okay, so every time you come across a dotted quarter note like this note, you're going to hold that for 3. So it'll be 1, 2, 2. So what I want you guys to do with me is clap this. Make sure you guys got a really solid counting system. And then when you get to the dotted half note, it's going to be 6, 2. Okay, let's count it together. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, just like that. And if you're not quite as rhythmic as maybe as confident as what you could be, I suggest tapping your foot to every count. It will make your foot kind of tap fast, but it will help you really establish a good counting system. So if, for example, the first note, tap twice, tap, 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 okay? Now what's key when you're doing this is making sure that the foot is always tapping and not stopping. A lot of students, especially people that have trouble tapping their head and rubbing their stomach at the same time, would have trouble possibly keeping the foot tapping consistently. So think of this as a second hand on a clock. You're always seeing the second hand move the same speed. So the foot should always move at a constant speed no matter what notes are being played. So for those of you that are here right now, you'll be able to see me. You'll have to come next week if you can't. But basically I'm going to bob to the beat. It's going to be a lot of bobbing, but you'll be able to see that, which would be basically what my foot should be doing. And if you do this, you'll be able to really establish a good, solid counting system. So here we go. Let's do it again. Ready, go. 1, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. It's like that. Okay? Now, what happens sometimes with students is that they understand the actual counting part of it, as far as the idea of it, but they struggle to actually apply it to the bow and apply it to the instrument. So what I suggest is, if you're having trouble with rhythm, is not actually playing the notes, just doing open strings, and try to just simulate the exact rhythm while tapping your foot. So I'm going to play open D for each of the rhythms. I'm going to tap my foot just like I just showed you. I'm going to bob as well so you can see it. But if you guys can do that properly, then you're ready to do the notes. But a lot of people need this bridge to be able to really get a good counting system and do it exactly right. Let's do it together. Ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 2, 2, 2, 3. 2, 2, 2, 3. 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Like that. Now, the more that you're holding the bow really tight, or maybe have a really tense shoulder bicep, it's going to be hard to move the bow quickly back and forth, which is going to hurt you, especially when you're trying to transition eighth notes. So somebody that might understand this counting system, they might drag the eighth note. They might play it like this instead of like that. So obviously you don't have to use a lot of bow for the eighth note, but try to really focus on being flexible, having the wrist relaxed and loose. Use the index finger to really transition the bow, and just make sure that you're doing that exactly the same amount of time as you tap your foot. So if you're not doing that, I think open strings is a great way. Okay, raise your hand if that makes sense. Hopefully you guys have a good counting system. It's a really important part of playing music, is really making sure you're not just doing it kind of right, but doing it exactly right. You'll find your music will be a lot more musical if you're playing rhythm exactly perfectly. It's really important. Okay, I'm going to erase what I have here, and now I'm going to give you guys some tips regarding the notes. So we're in the key of F major, which means that there's one flat, which is B flat. So whenever you see one flat, it's always the same flat, right? So when we get to a B, which let's see if that happens in this piece. I don't think it does. That's kind of nice. So no B flats. But when we get to an F, this is where people might make a mistake. They might play F sharp instead of just natural F in this key, as well as natural C. So for example, the second note is a low 2, F natural. Should not be in the high note position, F sharp. As well as this note, it's a low 2, C natural. What I like to do when I'm trying to achieve a low 2, I always like to have my first finger nearby. A lot of times students, when they're doing like a low 2, their first finger is kind of hanging, way up in the air or something along those lines. Make sure that when you're playing this piece or any piece, that you have a solid foundation with your thumb and your index finger, because when you get to that low 2, it's really nice to just be able to find it with just setting your 2 down right next to the 1. So even the second note, you haven't technically played a first finger yet, but if you have your first finger down, or at least just hovering over the string, it helps you to really feel where that low 2 is. So my 1 is down right here, but then basically to find the 2, I'm able to feel how it touches the 1. Fourth finger here. Same thing here, I'm feeling the 2 from the 1. Like that. One tip for the D that I just played, you can match it up with your open D to make sure it's right in tune. So go ahead and try that. Play open D along with your third finger on the A string. It should sound like that. If it sounds like this, or then it's off, right? It sounds horrible. It should sound nice and even. It's a nice even octave, right? So you might want to play that and maybe even try to hit that chord. So right there, I'm on the second line. My 1 is definitely nearby the position of the 1, so that I can find the 2. Right here, I left my 2 down. This is what I call a fingers down indicator. I'm leaving my second finger down right there. A lot of students, what they would do is they'd lift this note up in the air, and then they're forced to find it again here. But if you leave it down, it's very efficient. There's no reason to lift it there, right? So the second line, leave the 2 down. And even right here, you could leave the 2 down as well, all the way through until here. Because I would do this as a 4. Actually, you know what? You could even leave it down all the way until the end of the line. That'd be a great thing to practice. Let's try that second line, leaving your second finger down that whole time. Nice. I really like that for you guys to practice. Because what's nice is that you play the note again here, and technically if you were to lift it anywhere in this area, then you would have to find it again. So yeah, that's actually a really good example of a spot to practice leaving your fingers down. And what I really preach to students, a lot of them don't practice this or pay attention to this very much, but the more you leave fingers close to the fingerboard, the easier it is to play fast and actually play more in tune. So that's actually something that's really good. If you're having a lot of trouble doing that, most likely you're pressing down too hard into the fingerboard, which makes fingers pop up in the air, and that's a really bad habit. So try to see if you guys can work on that this week. All right, let's keep going. Fourth finger. Fourth finger there. Good. And one thing that I recommend that you guys practice, as I normally always recommend, is vibrato. So for those that really haven't maybe done a lot of vibrato and just kind of know the basic concept of vibrato, this is the symbol I use. I suggest trying to do it at least on these notes that I'm marking, as those are longer notes that are a little easier to do vibrato on. So the third line, where I just was, I would try to vibrato that D. Right here. And obviously if you're more advanced, maybe you're more at the 2-year mark and you've been doing vibrato a while, I would suggest trying to do it even on the dotted quarter notes like this, the last line. It's like that. One thing I'm going to throw in here that maybe some of you guys haven't done before, maybe I would say most of you guys probably have. Raise your hand if you guys have seen this marking before, a RIT. You guys know what that is? Okay. So this is what we call a ritardando. And that's basically where we slow down the phrase, which slower than what we just were playing the piece. So like if right here we're playing the piece, let's say at a 60 beats a minute, as we start getting towards the end, when we see this ritardando, we start to slow it down. It's kind of like a resolution of the piece. So if I was to play the end without the ritardando, it would sound like this. But now let's try to add it in a ritardando. It would sound like this. like that. Raise your hand if you guys could hear the difference with those two. All right, cool. All right, so I would suggest working on the ritardando at the end. Work on your low twos throughout this piece. If you guys are struggling at all with rhythm, and maybe some of the beginning tips were kind of, rather hard to understand, or maybe you guys feel like you don't really have a really good sense of rhythm, I really would work on that. There's always improvements to be made with rhythm, even if you're, much more advanced. And then I would say focus on leaving fingers down in the second line. I think that would be really good practice for you guys. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I would suggest working on the F major scale, which starts on second finger low on the D string. And just doing like a 1-octave scale, and try to keep your knuckles up as you're doing that. A lot of times what students do when they play low ones, which technically doesn't happen in this piece, but in the key of F, we have low ones, and it's really easy to dip the hand for low ones. It's easy to go like this, dip for the low one, and then kind of stay there for the low one on the E. Maybe come back, dip again. So try to do that by just squeezing your fingers back, more like this instead of dipping. That's going to help you guys to play fast, where you eventually could play an F major scale really fast for this piece, really any piece that's an F fast. But if you guys were dipping and moving the hand around, it would be hard to do that. So here, let's play the F major scale together at a moderate speed. Like that. So I think that would go along well with this assignment this week. So work on this piece as well as the F major scale. All right, well, for now I'm going to hang out with some of the students that came in the lab class. This class runs every Thursday evening at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. You can sign up right on the website in the webinar tab area. And we're here to help. So hopefully to see you guys in the next class next week, Thursday.